Welcome to The Innovators, the podcast where we talk to the people building the future. In each episode, we sit down with technologists, founders, researchers, and engineers who are doing real, impactful work. They're applying technologies in ways that change how we live, work, and think. Whether it's breakthroughs in AI, climate tech, health systems, or digital infrastructure, this show is about the people turning ambitious ideas into working systems. No hype, just thoughtful conversations with the folks making it happen. Innovators, a podcast about amazing people building amazing things. Today's amazing person is Andrew Reed. He's the CEO of Clear AI. Clear AI is it's like a AI supplement regimen system, right? So why don't you tell us what's going on here?
Yeah, for sure. So Claire, the concept here is a perfectly personalized powder supplement for every person. So I know that's some alliteration, but the idea is that with AI, we can use it almost like a nutritionist to give people elite level regimen building, and then follow that through the supply chain that we know really well to deliver them fully personalized supplements in a powder format. Because there's a bunch of reasons why we think that's a better format, but that's the concept.
Okay, so basically you go over, you say, I don't know, I want to build muscle and I want to sleep better and I want to think better, and you're going to send them a packet of powder that does that, right? Something like that.
Yeah, fundamentally, that's correct. Now, in the interim, like before you get all the way to doing that, it's important to share your health profile. So if you imagine it just like an interaction with a traditional human nutritionist, you might go into the office. They would say, "Tell me about your medical history, your background." Our AI is structured then to take your personal medical history and match that against 50,000 indexed peer-reviewed studies, so that every recommendation that we give is sort of based on that clinical evidence. And we would provide that in terms of say it was like protein, creatine, HMB free acid with dosages applied to that. And then ultimately, our vision is to deliver that as one single powder, but for now, it's little sachets that you can mix together and create.
What inspired this? Why did you build this?
So my background, originally, I was a startup guy myself. So I had multiple startups, one of which we sold to a company called Comscore, a big media tracking company. So that was a social media analytics company. But after that, I ended up through a variety of sort of different hops, running one of the world's largest supplement companies. So there were 3 or 4 of us, and we were the executive team of this, the second largest sports nutrition supplement maker. So we were selling truckloads of creatine and protein and things like that. So one part of it was that it opened my eyes to the potential of these actual compounds. So I myself don't eat a lot of meat. I am not fully vegetarian, but I was probably under indexing on the protein looking back on it. And when I just started to add some of the products that we were selling to the mix, so I'd come in as the tech guy really to drive digital sales. But when I started consuming the products, I did notice that it had a sort of a revolutionary impact on my slightly aging body. So I was having some joint difficulties, some kind of like, I felt that in a way I would just be on a declining path in some sense all the way until a later life where I would not be able to do the things that I like to do, whether those were sports or hikes or whatever. But with things, very simple interventions, so just protein, creatine, and a few other things, I was able to get a lot of mobility back and build a lot of muscle. But what I also saw was that we were marketing these things really to gym goers, and we called them the kind of the chains and veins audience. So this is like people who were looking for that rip. But in some ways, the products were actually extremely safe. Well, I mean, they are extremely safe and well tested, and often appropriate for very different audiences than the chains and veins. Like imagine the person who's kind of a geriatric, like an older grandma may benefit even more in a lot of respects from a creatine intervention than a chains and veins person would. So, so we thought that there could be an opportunity to kind of connect the AI technology that allows for the personalization to make it truly safe for grandma to start taking creatine with the supply chain that we know really well.
Okay. Um, so the supplements industry is fairly huge, right? This seems like a an interesting way to grow the pie, as it were. Is there still space in the supplements industry to do this? Is there still space to sell something like this, or is this sort of like this very focused system? Is this the way to go for future supplements, folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a great question. So, what distinguishes the supplement industry in a lot of respects is despite its size, it's extremely fragmented. And I think that fragmentation, so it's a $70 billion industry where 70% of consumers cite the fact that they're confused by what they're buying. And I think that leads directly to the fragmentation. So the many, many different players, but there's really no dominant player. And I think that's a function of the fact that it's so unregulated, kind of so much of a Wild West environment that no one really has trust that they absolutely must work with this one individual brand and continue that relationship for a long period of time. Now, they do form very deep partnerships and sort of collaborative relationships with nutritionists and with other practitioners along the path to the supplements. So, our vision is really that the AI can build a deep personal relationship with the individual, adapting to their biometrics as it ingests those, whether through conversation or through wearable data, and tweaking the regimen along the way so that people don't actually have to think about the regimen nearly as much as is required today if you want to really be on top of it.
Do you think there's any other spaces where you could sort of I don't know, sort of AIify health? I think one of the aspects is like an AI could tell you like, hey, you're eating too much sugar or something like that based on images it sees of your food or whatever. Does that make sense?
That definitely makes sense. Yeah, we've experimented a little bit with kind of like plate analysis. And once, so if you imagine the AI as being something that is specifically trained on clinically, or rather peer reviewed clinical evidence, that's kind of what distinguishes our underlying brain. That definitely has some applications. But the other key thing, and where we found kind of the most traction with users, is looking at complex interactions. So a lot of what puts people off from supplements, but in many ways from taking other interventions in their health, is the fear that they could do something to throw themselves off, which is a legitimate fear. So if you're adding, say, a vitamin D supplement, is that going to conflict with a medication that you're taking? And so we have this interaction checking capability based on currently updated peer reviewed studies. And I do think that that actually has quite a bit of application beyond just supplements. So, of course, supplements are a piece of that, but in clinical settings where the medications people are taking are constantly being tweaked and it's a very dynamic environment, certainly we're seeing at least, and perhaps we're missing a lot of where it could be applied, but that's where we've seen a kind of adjacent opportunity.
Hmm. Interesting. What's the funding world like for something like this? I mean, obviously you have some background in there, so you probably knew some folks who could probably give you the supplements for free to a degree, right? But
Yeah, so that
how are you funding it?
Yeah, I mean, so we initially self-funded it. We ended up running it through the ERA Accelerator in New York, which is an awesome kind of top tier program, and those are friends of mine from way back. But then uh, the environment is actually fairly, I would say, hot for health tech focused on biometric data. So we don't look at the funding as being a true impediment to it. So we know how to grow the business. The dollars in terms of the cost of goods sold is not really too extreme in our case, so we can scale it fairly in a fairly like one step at a time manner that allows us to be profitable along the way. The reason for that is that we're selling things in bundles. Fundamentally, like if you stripped away everything else, we're selling um, bundles of supplements that have fairly high gross margins and then a fairly high cart value if you're thinking about it purely in e-commerce terms. And then because of our slight tweak to the front end of that consumer relationship, we do have a little bit more retention than other supplement brands see. So because of those benchmarks, we can kind of take this to a variety of different investors, from angels to more supplement specific investors, and fund each step of our journey. But to get all the way to our kind of big, hairy, audacious goal of a single powder that would be where the manufacturing itself is personalized to the individual user, that's something that is going to require bigger funding. So we look at it as kind of two stages overall. One, where we prove the basic commerce dynamics of the industry, and then two, where we take it out to a to the powder and really innovate on the manufacturing itself. And so for that, we would be looking to raise more money, but that's probably about a year away.
In terms of being an entrepreneur in the age of AI, why do you think adding AI to the mix helps you? I mean, especially in this case.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, that like just thinking about any traditional sort of antiquated industry, the entire value chain is really susceptible to disruption from artificial intelligence. So you've got like in supplements specifically, you have to acquire the user, then you have to create a product, and there's 3 or 4 concrete steps to that, deliver the product, distribute it, and all of those things we've been paying SaaS subscriptions for. So as the CTO of this fairly large company before, I had a couple $1 million that I spent each year on software as a service for very specialized tools along that entire value chain, probably about 100 of them. And I would say about half of those will likely not be needed at all. You can create them from the primitives that exist both in the open source world and then also within, say, the Claude marketplace. So that makes a really big difference to your cost structure and your ultimate profit margins, both in terms of your gross margin and then the EBITDA margin that you get at the end of the day. So I think antiquated industries in particular will see a lot of disruption just from fairly simple integration with AI along those value chains.
Okay, fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cliche. It's like AI for powders, but in this very specific case, it works, right?
That's right, exactly. I mean, and I think it's the same in some ways in terms of media. And in fact, media is so connected to supplements, but like the ability for you to go and reach millions of people yourself with the microphone and the podcast setup, as opposed to needing a TechCrunch or some kind of an intermediary, it's not dissimilar. I think sometimes I say the best supplement companies today actually employ like a little writer's room, like a comedic writer's room in the company, and they just sort of spitball ideas of how to make short videos all day, and those videos drive the majority of the sales.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. Super. Well, so the address is claer.ai. Hopefully you can make enough money to buy to buy Clear.
That would be awesome. I think there's some kind of a manufacturing AI operation, so it might be difficult. I wish them well, but yeah, no, this is Claire, like the name, but spelled with the A.
Yes, like the name, but spelled wrong.
Exactly.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be a difficult search, but I think you got it. All right, very cool. So claer.ai. We'll send folks over there. Thank you for this. Thank you for sharing this.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
This has been The Innovators. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next time.